What's going on? Facebook, what up? YouTube, what up? IG, what up? It's your boy Coach White, man. I hope y'all had a phenomenal week on purpose. This is going to be a really good lesson today. So, like I always say, if you check in just for a minute, man, I appreciate you. Salute. I hope that in a minute's time you get something out of it. It is 8 o'clock, so we are going to get started because I love to be on time. All right, and we're going to start with some brief announcements. Okay, so just encouraging you guys to check out the gallery that tells your story on YouTube. Check out the content. I really want you guys' feedback on some of the content that I have posted. Um, it would be really dope to hear from you. To get your take on it. So that's important to me. Your feedback, whether you like it or not, whether you subscribe or not, uh, is not my focus. It would be cool, of course, but I just want your feedback, man. So you get a chance, or when you have a chance, check out the gallery that tells your story on YouTube. Yeah, give me some feedback on the content. Uh, Always promoting the books for sale. Uh, I'm blessed to be a three-time author. My first book project is I Do, I Did, and It Didn't. That's available on Amazon and Kindle, as well as my second project that I had the opportunity to complete with my beautiful wife. Shout out to her. Salute. It is called Forsaking All Others. And then the third book project is called The Invisible Marriage, which is somewhat of a spinoff of I Do, I Did, and It Didn't. So just to, give you a heads up, the second and third book project that I have, Forsaking All Others and The Invisible Marriage, is a part of a series called Aiden's Journey. Aiden is the main character. It is a Christian fiction novel. Uh, so yeah, check it out, man. On Amazon and Kindle. And also, I am standing to promote my wife's book project titled 50 Shades of She. That is available on Amazon. It is a really dope poetic novel. If you are into poetry, shout out to my spoken word brothers and sisters. I think that you will really like my wife's book project, 50 Shades of She, all in poetic form, depicting her experiences with domestic violence in the past. So if you want to be a blessing to us, go and check that out on Amazon. And like I said, if nothing else, give us some feedback. Wednesday night, of course, is tonight. Every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is Coach Class with Coach. Uh, if you know me, then you would know that I coach from three pillars. The first pillar is about self talk. The second pillar, which is what we're on tonight, we are in week 10, at least week 10. Um, and we're talking about your relationship with you, which is the most important relationship that you will ever have outside of your relationship with God. All right, so that's the second pillar. Once we finish this unit, which this is a pretty lengthy unit, then we move on to interpersonal skill development, which is about your relationship with your neighbor, or in other words, your relationship with others. All right. So if you are a client, if you are a current client of mine, thank you for joining. I really appreciate you. If you inspire to be a client or a coach, then you're in the right place. Uh, Check us out every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also on Sunday, for my brothers and sisters that are students of the good word of God, uh, I have Bible study live every Sunday from 12 to 1 p.m. We are walking through the book of Hebrews. We have been studying Hebrews coming up on a year, and we have just gotten into chapter 7. That is a verse by verse Bible study, and the objective is to learn what the Bible means by what it says. So, you're welcome to join every Sunday from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also have merchandise for sale. We have the Gallery That Tells Your Story t-shirts. We have my favorite scripture, John 8:24 t-shirts available. And we have self-love over self-destruction t-shirts available. All right. So those are the announcements. I'm very, very excited to get into this. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Let's get into the quote of the day. Share that. Let me get rid of some of this stuff up here on my tabs. Okay, here's the quote of the day. TikTok. Check this out. Emma, salute. Trey, salute. Thanks for checking in. Baker, salute. The quote of the day is, when someone is pushing your buttons, pay close attention. They are showing you where you need to grow. Did you get that? I'm going to read that again. It's the quote of the day. When someone is pushing your buttons, pay close attention. They are showing you where you need to grow. All right. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And I'm going to go to this whiteboard. I love my whiteboard. I think this is the one I need right now. All right, here we go. Again, when someone is pushing your buttons, this is the quote of the day. When pushing your buttons, pay close attention. They are showing you where you need to grow. So here's my questions, or here are my questions for you. Number one, what are your buttons? What are your buttons? Are you even aware? Are you self-aware enough to know what your buttons are? Or are you just easily a person who's easily annoyed, agitated, irritated by the slightest thing or things? If you are that person, I will tell you that I be that person until I started doing my work. If you are that person now, allow me to coach you up so that you are very cognizant and self-aware enough to know what your buttons are. Because if you don't know what your buttons are that people are pushing, you're already losing. Allow me to coach you up to create a win-win scenario. The win is coming to realization of what your buttons are. Being self-aware to know what your buttons are. So that's the first question I thought of when I read the quote. The second question is, who are the people that you allow? I worded it that way on purpose. Who are the you allow to push your buttons the most? Who are they? And I said this before and I'll say it again. The relationships that you're in, especially the long-term relationships that you're in, will expose every button that you have if you're not aware of it. That's what relationships do. They expose your weaknesses. They expose your buttons. The triggers, I'm good with that too. But the question is, do you love yourself enough to do the work that is required for you to become more self-aware? Especially if you are a parent. It's very important that you know what your button, because your kids will push them. That's what they do. All right. So when you do your self-reflection, your self-assessment, I want you to write down. I'm encouraging everybody to journal if you haven't started already. And I want you to write down who are the people that you allow to push your buttons the most. Write them down. Also going to write down what exactly they do or don't do, say or don't say to push your buttons. And if you want to be a little more descriptive, you'll write how they say the things they say to you. May be a factor as well. All right. The next question that I want to give you from this quote of the day is, why do you allow them to push your buttons? See, this thing is all about self-control. So when I coach clients, with the objective of teaching you how to control self, how to manage your emotions effectively, how to become more rational, more logical, and when it comes to making decisions, choices, and things of that nature. So we have to be willing to admit, TikTok, when we allow people to push our buttons. Now, this class on Tuesday, I told them, if you tell me one more time that you're just going to ignore people, I'm going to throw up all over the place. I don't know why we think that ignoring people is the answer. Now, if you were these classes before virtually, I talk about my theory a lot. And the theory that I discuss is the bottom line of it is that in argument, every confrontation, whatever, there's a victim and there's a victimizer. The victimizer is the person who throws the darts. The victim is the person that is hit by the darts. All right? I'm not talking that necessarily. When I'm talking about pushing, that's something different. If somebody's throwing a dart at you, that's intentional. They're trying to hurt you. So I want to make sure we don't get that concept confused. Because what people will do is they'll marry the two concepts, and they'll think that when your buttons are being pushed, that darts are being thrown, when that's not necessary. So when I tell people that sometimes you need to get out of range of the darts that are being thrown, sometimes they mistakenly think that, or they attribute that to walking away from the people that push your buttons. Because guess what? From the people that push your buttons, I want you to consider the fact that the people that push your buttons the most are the people that you are around the most. So these people you can't ignore them. So that's not the answer. And we're going to talk about it a little more when we get into the article of the day. And let me just give you a preliminary point. TikTok, I want you to hear this. They're being pressed in the present are connected to past experiences. Are you with me? The buttons that are being present are connected to past experiences. So it's not about the here and now per se, as it pertains to the people that stand in front of you that's pushing those buttons. It's about identifying when your buttons are being pushed are and doing other work. And if you want me to help you, I'm available. Doing enough self-work to be able to connect the dot from the button that's being pressed in the present to the experience in the past. And I work with some pretty awesome therapists that will help you to do that deep dive. All right. I don't know what this is. Not right there. So that's what I do with you in coaching. That's what therapists do that with me that will help the client connecting the present buttons to and experiences in the past. All right. The last question that I have from the quote of the day is, where do you need to grow? Where do you need to grow, TikTok? Where do you need to grow in life? When you look in your mirror and when you consider the buttons being pressed or pushed, when you consider through your self-work what the buttons are and what past experience or buttons, plural, connected to, what is it telling you about where you need to grow? When you look in that mirror, I'll say it again like I never said it before, or ask like I never asked before. What do you realize you need to grow? Where? And let's start with your relationship dynamics. Your weak areas. Where do you struggle the most in your relationships? And that's a good point to start with. Pull out that journal. We write down scenarios by which your buttons are being pushed. And there's really 4 categories. The 4 categories are simple. When people say what, when people do what, or when people what, or when people don't do what. Those are the 4 basic categories where you can identify what your buttons are. All right? So I'll stop sharing this. And I am excited of the day. So let me close this. I'm gonna close that out. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. Let me see. Hold on. I think I'm going to get rid of one of these whiteboards. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the article. Let me get rid of this whiteboard here. I don't like clutter. All right. Listen to this, man. I really love this article. We're going to pick this apart today with the time we have remaining. And we're going to take our time with this. We're not going to rush anything. All right. The title of this article, and if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of Psychology Today. It is Disarming Your Buttons. How Not to Get Provoked by Dr. Leon Seltzer. All right. How is it that your hot buttons come directly from your child's self? Is the question that he asks. Where do your hot buttons come from anyway? Listen to this. It's actually quite simple. When your buttons get pushed, you react automatically, right? After all, that's what getting your buttons pushed means. Stimulus response. Stimulus response, or rather, stimulus reaction. For response implies choice. And when your buttons are being hammered, your counter behavior is instantaneous, deliberation, or for that matter, discretion. In such instances, you're impelled by a force that's far stronger, far more primal than your rational adult mind to strenuously defend yourself. All right? So when those buttons are being pushed, in some instances, your defenses come up, your walls go up, you get into protection mode. Some of you get into attack mode. All right? Some of you get into that flight mode. Let me get out of here. All right? Depending on the circumstances. But check this out. Or to attack whoever has perhaps unwittingly provoked you. Or in a sudden state of urgency, to hastily retreat from the situation altogether. The doctor says your immediate and typically fervent behavior usually reflects some archaic operating system. He calls it an emotional survival program existing considerably below your conscious mind. And then he gives an example. Just as any animal by nature, exquisitely sensitive to sudden sound or movement, instinctively tenses all its muscles to prepare for fight, flight, or freeze, so do we humans instantly adapt to anything we perceive as threatening. I hope that makes sense. Except, unlike other animals, when we become hypersensitive, listen to this, to any perceived disagreement, denial, slight, insult, whatever provoked us rarely constitutes a serious threat to our survival. So frankly, our adaptation isn't particularly adaptive. If you follow me on Facebook, I put up a quote the other day because I often hear this, and I think this is relative. You know how TikTok, you know how people say your perception is your reality. So my thinking is, if you're saying that your perception is your reality, if you subscribe to that, what I want you to also understand is just because your perception is your reality, it doesn't mean that your perception is true. It doesn't mean that your perception is true. And I like how the doctor highlighted, he said perceived disagreement. So you perceive that it's some kind of disagreement or denial or slight or insult, and immediately your defenses go up. And those are instances where your buttons are being pushed. You defend yourself. You fight. Or you get up out of there. Or you freeze up. All right? And then he goes on to say this. Getting your buttons pushed almost invariably sends you, listen to this, on an unwelcome trip back to your past, to a time when you possess precious few resources to protect yourself from what in the moment felt dangerous. You see how the way he puts it in this article, do you see how those present buttons being pushed is connected to a past experience? This is why it's important to do our self work. With all of my clients, I do a life story interview where we go back. We go from your earliest memories of mom and dad. And I ask you a lot of questions leading up to where you are now. And a lot of clients have told me in tears, now some light bulbs are starting to go off for me. Now I'm starting to understand why I am the way I am. Now I'm starting to become more self-aware. Now I know and can identify the learned behavior because I became like who I associated with the most. All right. Life story interview. So if you are a coach and you are checking in, I'm giving you a bone. Please, I encourage you with your clients, do life story interviews from their earliest recollections of their childhood and their relationship with mom and dad up to the current point, and ask them questions and watch how the light bulb goes off for them. Some stuff they have forgotten about, and as they begin to tell their stories, it starts to come back. They start to recall. And it's an amazing thing. So I'm giving you that bone. If you're a coach and if you're a client, shoot me. I tell you what, you shoot me a DM within the next 2 minutes, and I will do a life story interview with you for free. No charge. And I will help you to begin to unpack some things so that you become more self-aware. You got 2 minutes to shoot me a DM and say, Coach, and you could, I was going to say Coach something else, but you could say, I want a life story interview. Put that in the DM. I got you. If you do that within the next 2 minutes, I got you. All right, but let's get back to the article. Let's eat some more. All right. This involuntary present to past phenomenon is something I regularly find myself explaining to clients, he says, who generally have very little awareness, hint, hint, awareness, that the buttons they've been futilely struggling to control, listen to this, belong not to their present self, but to their inner child of the past. I want to show you guys something real quick. Can I let me show you something. One of my favorite if you know me, you know I'm big on art, right? Check this out. I don't know if you guys could fully see this. This is one of my favorite pieces. You see that? Inner child. What does that say to you when you see this? You have two adults that look like they're distressed, but the little kids in them want to play. The little kids in them want to hug. The little kids in them want to love. The little kids in them want to embrace. Right? But let's flip it. Let's flip it. Let's go to the other side of the coin here. Because I don't want to lose you. We're talking about a button being pushed and the little kid in you coming out to address the button. The kid in you steps up. The adult in you steps back in that moment. And you respond emotionally. And you respond impulsively. and you respond erratic. That's what tends to happen. That is why self-work is so important. All right? But let's go on. As I like to put it, the adult part of us is reasonable, logical, objective, and controlled. Not easily does it become agitated or carried away. Moreover, as mature individuals, we're able to evaluate a situation realistically and then respond appropriately rather than rashly to it. Ideally, possessing a hard earned confidence and sense of adult authority, we can maintain our mental and emotional poise regardless of various kinds of external pressure we're subject to. However, on the other side of the coin, when we've gotten our buttons pushed and so are developmentally regressed back into our child self, our grown up self, as it were, missing or is missing in action. For now, our judgment and the wisdom gained from many years of observation and experience is pretty much rendered null and void. In that moment, the moment when our buttons are being pushed, enslaved by our inner child's emotions, we can't possibly reflect on the most effective response to the offending person or event. For now, it's the child part of us that's in charge, who's taken custody of or preempted our more mature, rational self. And as a child confronted by someone or something perceived as potentially harmful, we're desperate to nullify that treat or that threat, rather, as quickly as we can and with little consideration for the consequences of such impetuous behavior. Wow. I got a confession to make. You know me, you know I'm pretty transparent because I want you guys to know that I'm not above reproach. I'm human just like you. And there's a situation that comes to mind for me. And I won't give many details. This is not a client or nor a potential client, nor am I referring to anybody who ever wanted to be a client. This was a real like emergency situation. And I was going to support a friend. And we got in the car. We went to this particular scene. And we had this whole game plan going into this particular situation, which was volatile. It was a volatile situation. So I figured, you know, I can talk to the young brother. You know, he's probably in his early 30s or so, late 20s. I'm thinking I could, you know, bring some peace to the environment, right? If nothing else, you know me, you know I'm a listener. I listen to what people are saying, and I try to listen to people's heart as well. Because sometimes, pardon me, I'm able to see beyond the aggression and the loud talk and the persona, you know, the pride, right? So I've been doing this for a while. So I'm listening to this young brother vent, and he's repeating. It must be a thing now with my young brothers. But he wants to talk about how he's a wolf, right? And I've never heard it said more than I've heard it that particular day. I'm a wolf. I'm a wolf out here, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying that to say this. I'm human. I had to I had to restrain TikTok, my inner child. Because, you know, as I shared with you guys before, uh, your self talk has to be the hero for your thoughts and for your emotions. If your self talk succumbs to your thoughts, your negative thoughts, and the emotions that are not good for you in the moment, then your self talk will follow suit. And then the action that follows is probably going to land you somewhere where you're going to be sitting for a minute and regretting your action. Are you with me? So I'm listening to this young brother, and I'm having this inner dialogue with myself. And I'm in this constant war at the time. The adult in me is saying, well, you know, his energy is not directed toward you, coach. He's just he's he's enraged. The little child in me, can y'all be real with me? And let me know that you guys have these internal conflicts. The little child in me said, nah, he's directing that to you. He's saying that to say something slick to you. And I'm telling you, it was a battle. I had to keep putting the little boy in me. I had to make him sit down, y'all. Because the aggressive nature and energy and demeanor that this brother had at the time, he was pressing my buttons. And he didn't know it. In his defense, he didn't know it. I think it's just a persona. It's just, you know, I have to show this man in front of me that uh, I'm a loose cannon. Like I have no regard for life. Like you know, it was important for him to say that in that moment. But I'm saying this again on purpose so that you know that your coach is human too. That I was in battle mode internally. Now I'm still, you know, externally, I'm still calm and cool. But the little child in me said, man, you think you weak. You must think you're a sucker or something to be talking to you in that tone. So I'm saying all that to say we have to be more mature. We have to be self-aware, and we have to know that it is very important for us to protect the little kid in us. And in order for us to do that, the adult in you, TikTok, has to stand up in those moments. It doesn't make any sense for the kid in you to stand up for the adult. Kids don't protect adults. At least that's not how it's supposed to be. So the little kid in you has to sit down in those moments, but guess who's in control? You and your self-talk. You have to tell the little kid in you when your buttons are being pushed to sit down. Or you may end up in prison. And life's going to sit you down. All right? So just something to keep in mind. I just wanted to share that. Let you know it's real. This psychological warfare is real. But, you know me, I can't say that without following up with this. We do not war against flesh and blood. This is a spiritual war first, and then it's a psychological war. But let's go on. And then he concludes. This may or may not be the last paragraph. Governed by overwhelming. Listen to this. I like how this is worded. Unanalyzed emotions. Do you have that? The kid in you is governed by unanalyzed emotions. Governed by overwhelming, unanalyzed emotions, our irresistible impulse is to regain some sense of safety, to reduce our precarious sense of vulnerability. With our adult brain hijacked, we're left in a position where we're compelled to do something, however imprudent or counterproductive, that will help neutralize the distressful feelings of insecurity that now beset us. And again, we're talking about when our buttons are being pushed. The child in us is standing up and making the adult sit down. But our self-talk has to reverse that order. And then he goes on to say, in such a pressured state, there's no time to contemplate the actual threat of the situation or our present day ability to assert some authentic power over it. For in being re-identified with our child self, there's little sense that we possess such power. The only alternative, therefore, is non-rationally to act out the emotion that now holds us in its grip. And just as this sort of unmediated reactivity probably wasn't very helpful in the past, when we get our buttons pushed in the here and now, our instant reaction rarely enables us to successfully resolve our current impacts. Are you with me? So, in situations of perceived threat, how do we contrive to get our adult self back on the scene? Or better, are there practical ways we can keep our inner adult from leaving in the first place? Ways to keep that more mature self fully operational, even in situations that previously may have caused it to vanish entirely. Are you with me? I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my whiteboard for a minute. And then I'm going to move on to part 2 of the article. I love this article. Did I say that already? So from the article, a couple things that I was able to take away from it. When your buttons are being pushed, you may go into retreat or attack mode. You may go into TikTok, subconscious, emotional, survival programming. What does that look like for you? Emotional survival. What does that look like? Buttons are pushed, you go back to some past experience where you could not protect yourself. This is possibly where it originated. All right. So again, make sure that you are able to, when you journal, connect your present button pushing experience to some kind of past event. Probably should have said it the other way around. Make sure in your journal, in the here and now, you're writing down when your buttons are being pressed or pushed, and then connect it to a past experience. All right. I'm going to pull up part 2, and I'm going to start that just as an intro, and we'll finish it out next week. All right, let me share my screen again. Okay. Any questions so far before we move on? Questions, comments? Jazz, salute, salute. Thanks for checking in. Pam, Ivory, salute. Thanks for checking in. Belinda, thanks for checking in. Salute. Lou Houston, salute, salute. Any questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts before we continue on? All right. Part 2, disarming your buttons. We are talking about in this unit, if you're just joining us, this unit on Coach Class with Coach is about your relationship with you. The subunit is called self-awareness, and we're talking about when your buttons are being pushed. All right. We are connecting in the present day the buttons to a past experience so it can be addressed in the present. All right. Again, this shout out to Dr. Leon Seltzer. And the article goes on as such. Diffusing past disturbances to deactivate present day buttons. The topic of protecting or even eradicating your buttons is one that, at least indirectly, has been covered in several earlier posts, right? In the various methods the doctor discussed, all relate to talking, listen to this, talking to yourself in such a manner that what was once seen as threatening or hazardous is now viewed as no big deal. All right? As in a word, manageable. Still, the problem with reactivity is that it can happen in an instant before, that is, you're able to provide yourself with the self-validation and self-soothing needed to respond judiciously. Again, by definition, when your buttons get pushed, you can't help but react, which is to say, be driven to behave emotionally. Are you with me? What all this should suggest is that it's critical to identify just what buttons or just what pushes your buttons to begin with. Otherwise, there's no way you can pinpoint, let alone work through those past experiences that now prompt you to overreact to provocations that actually may be more felt than real. In fact, it's important to recognize that what incites you isn't necessarily anything that would provoke someone else. All right? Finally, it may be only because the current day stimulus subconsciously reminds you of something that upset you weeks, months, years, or even decades ago, that you're compelled to lose your cool in the present. But once you can make the required connections between the there and then and the here and now, you can begin to deactivate those buttons that, till this point, have irrationally taken over your behavior. Are you with me? Once you're able to bring a new and more positive self-understanding to whatever distressing messages about yourself you received or thought you received when you were younger, and probably much younger, Your essential self-image can undergo all kinds of transformative changes. So, what exactly is it that triggers your buttons? And just how do you determine what causes you to become provoked? What you can't help but react to as an affront, annoyance, indignity, or an insult. And I think I'm going to pause right there. And I think I'm going to pick up next week with the next section of this article, because this is going to require for you to do a lot of work. Because you're going to ask yourself in your journal a series of questions with the objective of knowing exactly what it is that triggers your buttons. All right? And I don't want to rush through this. So I think I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts before we close out for today? Ask now or forever hold your peace. I did stop sharing, didn't I? Just want to make sure. I did. Okay. Everybody good? TikTok, y'all good? All right. So just want to give a shout out to some people who checked in. If I haven't already, I really appreciate you guys. Alex, salute. GG, salute. J Rod, salute. Angelina, salute. Thanks for checking in. Lon Sherd, my God, man. It's good to see you on here, man. Salute. Julie, salute. Mark, salute. Thanks for checking in. Shamar, what's up, good brother? Salute. Who else we got? Lucy, salute. Dawn, salute. AJ, salute. James, salute. Thanks for checking in. Adrian, thanks for checking in. Salute, salute. Who else we had? Anesha, salute. Thanks for checking in. Belinda, salute. Pam, salute. Tuesday, thanks for checking in. Roger Carr, salute, salute. The Missus, salute. Thanks for checking in. Who else we got here? Beanie, salute. Thank you, good brother. Michael, salute. Thanks for checking in. Let's see. Mario, salute. Thank you, good brother, for checking in. Barbara, salute. Chris, salute. Thank you guys so much. Who else we got? T. Rucker, salute. Jay, salute. Thanks for checking in. Cynthia, salute. Christina, salute. My brother D. Walk. What's up, good brother? Good to see you on here. Melissa, salute. Who else we got? Abel, salute. Thanks for checking in. Angel, Sarah, Jean, Pam, thanks for checking in. Who else we got? Randy, salute. Jason, salute. Thanks for checking in. Kimberly, salute. Nikki, salute. Who else we got? Ruby, salute. Thanks for checking in. Kay, salute. Angela, thanks for checking in. Brian, thanks for checking in. John, salute, good brother. Thanks for checking in. Betty, salute. Tony, salute. Thanks for checking in. Yolanda, salute. Carol, salute. Thank you. Jocelyn, salute. Alina, thanks for checking in as well. Carmelita, salute. Eric, salute. Tay, salute. David, salute. Man, I appreciate all of you guys checking in. I can't call out everybody, but definitely appreciate you guys. for joining Coach Class with Coach. See you guys next week, man, and have a great week on purpose. And if there's anything that I ever can do to help you guys with coaching, let me know. And if you are someone that is looking to become a coach, let me know as well. We'd love to have you on board, man. And see you guys next time. Peace. All right. All right. I'll put the replay on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. All right. That is Thursday night.